Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the LineTime Sports UFC show. It's your friend LineTime Rick at LineTime Rick on X, as always, joined by my friend the Hammer at LineTime Hammer on X. Thank you for listening, wherever that may be: SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music, and if you prefer to watch us, we're on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you again. Thanks for tuning in, as always. And as always, again, follow LineTime Sports on X, TikTok, Instagram, whatever your preferred social media is. Hammer, how's it going? Decent week of fights last week, not the greatest. There was some entertainment though. There was some drama. How you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, not the best card, but some interesting matchups and kind of the same with this week. But I like the matchups a little bit more. A lot of versus striker matchups. There's some grappler versus striker matchups that I think are going to be pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm excited for this week.
Yeah, a little bit better this week. Like I said last week, leading up to we got 298 next week, and then we have 299 and 300 coming up too. So with these big cards coming up, like I said last week, the main events specifically on these fight nights are going to be lacking a little bit. Even like co-mains, featured fights, it's going to be a little bit lesser than we're used to, just because they really stacked, especially 299 and 300. There's a ton of good fights, top to bottom on those cards. So it's going to be a little bit less than we're used to quality wise, but it's whatever. We'll bite the bullet. We all wanted a big spectacle for 300, and Dana wanted to put something big for 299 too. So uh, we'll live with it. We'll roll with the punches. We'll get straight into this one. We got UFC Vegas 86 this weekend, again at the Apex, just as last weekend. I did see on X today that Elon Musk is going to be there on Saturday. That's a bit of a weird one for the Apex, but that I guess that might hype the guys up a little bit. But we'll just get straight into it on the main card. We got a main event this weekend in middleweight. We got the number 11th ranked Jack Hermansson. He's fighting Joe Pyfer, unranked as of right now. But we got Hermansson coming in at a dog at plus 196, and Pyfer is a minus 260 favorite. This is the third fight card in a row where we're going to bring it up that when we see somebody who's, I guess in this situation, ranked in general,
Hmm.
Hermanson at 11 and Pfeiffer's unranked, and Pfeiffer's still almost a 3-1 favorite. It's usually when we see this, the favorite wins, and the favorite wins by a decent amount. This is an interesting case, though, for this fight. We got Pfeiffer, who's 12-2 in his career, 3-0 in the UFC. He's on a 5-fight win streak currently. He's coming off that round two arm triangle win over Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Then you got Hermanson, who's 23-8 in his career, 10-6 in the UFC. He's coming off of that second round TKO loss to Roman Dolidze, who we saw last weekend. His last 8 fights have been back and forth between his wins and losses. So, he had the loss to Dolidze and win, then a loss and a win. So he's a bit of a streaky fighter in that way. And then we got the over under set at 2.5 rounds. Over is the underdog actually at plus 124. Under is minus 160. This should be an interesting fight. Pfeiffer obviously has a ton of power. Hermansson's good at grappling, a good submission guy. What are your thoughts on this one?
Um, I kind of like Jack Hermansson. I was close to making him my favorite pick, to be honest. It's tough though. The reason I'm not going to is because I think he could be a really good live bet. Joe Pyfer has a lot of power, pretty good striking. Showed a little bit of his wrestling and his submission game. His last one, granted, Al Hassan is just a straight striker. So I just think that Joe Pyfer has the ability to put him out early here, and if he doesn't, I think Hermanson is. I still think even if Hermanson doesn't get put out early, I think he's going to lose the first round. He's a slow starter. He kind of needs a round or two to get into the groove of things. So I think you could get him if he after that first round. I'm thinking he's going to be 3-1, maybe even 4-1 if he gets dropped and stuff. So um, I like Hermanson on, but I'm not. I don't like him enough to bet him pre-fight. I'm kind of gonna sit on this one and hope to get him live at even better odds. Joe Pfeiffer's looked really good, man. I'm pretty sure he broke Francis Ngannou's like punch record at the UFC PI on like the punching machine. He hits really hard. Good solid striking. I just haven't seen him get into deep waters yet, and Jack Hermansson's pretty good at taking you there. So I haven't really seen his gas tank. His gas tank hasn't been truly tested yet. So I think I wouldn't hate anyone that bet him pre-fight. I just think you're gonna get better odds live, and I think he can get it done. But like you said, when you see these unranked guys or guys lower in the rankings fight someone higher and they're the favorite, a lot of times they get the job done. We still got to find like uh percentages on like what that's hitting at, because I would be interested to see that. But yeah, that's what my insight into. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that punch power thing because that's just been like something that has been marketed a lot, especially during this week, is how hard he punches, how he punches harder. Like, harder than Ngannou. Obviously, there's a difference because they're different, different weight, different. But like when it comes to straight punch power, Pfeiffer it does have the more powerful punch. Supposedly, I heard him talking about it. He said like, yeah, I'm a 185er, but I'm walking around 210, 220. So he's bigger than he may seem to be. But I do agree that it might be wise to sit this one out until it gets down to the nitty-gritty. I think that if Pfeiffer wins, it's probably gonna be in that first, maybe second round, and it's gonna be by knockout. Like I said, his last one over Abdul-Razak Hassan was via submission, but, it's not like he's looking for the submission when he goes into these fights. It's not like he's looking to get you on the ground and submit you. He wants to punch you. It's a puncher's chance. And then Hermansson, on the other hand, he wants to get you to the ground. He wants to submit you. And, one specific thing that I just always comes to my mind is even before we were doing this podcast, it was myself, Hammer, I think Buddy was there, LineTime Buddy, and we had Kelvin Gastelum. I think it was the last leg of our parlay, maybe second to last leg, and he was fighting Jack Hermansson. And we were feeling kind of confident. Kelvin Gastelum, he can get this done. 8 seconds in, Hermansson locks up a heel hook, fight's over. So that's always the off chance of Jack Hermansson. That's always
Well, that one, sorry to cut you off. I think that one, if I'm remembering correctly, that one really pissed us off because I'm pretty sure Gastelum initiated the takedown. I think he lateral dropped him or hip tossed him, got him to the ground, and then he gets back to his feet. Well, he like Hermanson like rolls for a leg or whatever, and I'm pretty sure Gastelum got out of it the first time, and then he took him down again and got submitted. So yeah, that one was just tough because we're like, why the fuck are you taking him to the ground? You obviously have the better stand up. Granted, Gaslam was a really good high school wrestler. I don't think he ended up going anywhere in college, but he's a good high school wrestler. He has good wrestling, but against a guy like Jack Hermansson, like why even test it when your striking's more superior? So yeah, that one definitely sucked. But yeah, in this case, I mean Joe Pyfer won't be taking it to the ground. I can guarantee that. Like, even if he's able to take him down, it's just a place he's not going to want to be because Hermanson is very dangerous off his back. So yeah, I don't see that happening in this one.
There, to add to that, so this jumped out so hard to me when I was looking at these odds. This is round and method of victory. Joe Pyfer to win by KO TKO in round one is plus 250, which
Yeah,
which is
that's low.
crazy. That's
Yeah.
really, really low. So
all
the
right.
books certainly seem to think that's pretty high likelihood of that one.
I do kind
Uh,
of think that's what's going to happen.
real
Uh,
quick, what is Hermanson by sub? I'm just interested.
Hermanson by sub is 7 to 1 plus 700.
Wow.
so the
Damn.
books don't like our train of thought, but it's just so like in my head, if Pfeiffer, I mean, he probably won't initiate a clinch. He shouldn't initiate a clinch because if you do, Hermanson could definitely find a way to get it down to the ground. And I don't have very much confidence on Pfeiffer surviving the ground with Hermanson. Like I said, Hermanson, he'll snatch up a limb, he'll get your neck, he'll do something on the ground, he'll make you tap out. So if Pfeiffer's smart, he'll fight this fight his way. He'll keep it on the feet and he'll keep it just being a kickboxing match. And I think that I mean, I know that he has the power to knock him out in the first. If he connects clean on Hermanson, he's probably going to get knocked out. That's why, like I said, the over under it's set at 2.5 rounds, and the under is favored at a minus 160. So I think that's pretty safe. I wouldn't necessarily say like go out and put Joe Pfeiffer in your parlays at a minus 260. I think that's a little risky. Um, I don't hate the under 2.5. If you find somebody like around a -200 that you want to parlay that with, I don't hate that very much. Like I said, I think that if Pfeiffer wins, it's probably going to be in the first. Definitely by the second round. If it's going to be a finish for him, I would say it's within the first 2 rounds. But again, like I said, I could see Hermansson getting this fight to the ground somehow, and he's tapping out Pfeiffer. He hasn't had much of a test once it gets down to the ground. We haven't really seen him have to fight a grappler like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll move on to this co-main event. This is a really good fight too. Honestly, these first two fights are really entertaining. Featherweight bout between the number 13th ranked Dan Ige. He's fighting Andre Touchy Feely, possibly the best nickname in the sport, Touchy Feely. Ige -186 favorite. Feely is a +144 dog. You got Ige, who's 17-7 in his career, 9-6 in the UFC. He's coming off of that unanimous decision loss to Bryce Mitchell, where we had the amazing meme of Mitchell with the Bible yelling freedom. Everybody remembers that one, of course. Then you got Touchy Feely. He's 23-10 in his career, 11-9 in the UFC with one no contest. He's coming off of that round one TKO over Lucas Almeida. Over under set at 2.5 rounds. Over is a high favorite at -200, under at +154. It's an interesting fight. I'd like to root for Andre Feely in this one. I love Andre Feely. This is one where like I don't necessarily know if it's going to be his last or maybe even considered his first run for a title. He's fighting number 13th ranked Ige. So if he wins this, you would think he's going to get a number next to his name. And he's fought some high level guys before, some bigger names, but he's never really been considered a guy that's been on a title run. I mean, and in the past too, we've heard Feely come out and say like, I don't necessarily like to fight, but it's what I do for a living. It's what I do for money. So I'm going to keep doing it. Which is I feel like it's not as kind of a weird stance as we think it might be. I feel like kind of a lot of guys think like that. They don't love to, technically fight to the death of these guys. But Feely was out there in public about it. But this is a fun matchup. I kind of like Ige in this one, like the books do. Like I said, he's a -186 favorite. I think Ige has that great jab, good power, and Feely doesn't necessarily love to take the fights to the ground as much as he maybe should, especially against a guy like Ige. What do you think, Hammer?
Yeah, I mean, Andre Feely is a simple guy. He likes Harley Davidson motorcycles and big beauty Latinas, as he said in his post fight
Amazing,
press conference. That
amazing
was
quote.
that was hilarious. But yeah, I think this is a fight that Dan Ige probably gets done. If he was like minus like 130 even, I'd probably bet him. I just don't like to lay close to 2-1. Yeah, feel like you would think Feely would wrestle more, being out of Team Alpha Male. Great wrestling gym, but and he's been there for years. I mean, I think that's been his home pretty much his whole career, if not his whole career. I think Ige has the potential to knock him out here. Ige hits really hard. We've seen Feely get knocked out in the past. He doesn't have a bad chin by any means, but a guy that hits as hard as Ige, not the best matchup for him. I think this is going to stay on the feet, and I think Ige definitely has the potential to knock him out. And when Ige fights, he's like, no, I don't want to call him lower level, but like when he doesn't fight the top of the division, he looks really good. Um, and I kind of just think this is one for him to, you know, get back in the win. So was his last fight Mitchell?
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I think this is just not I wouldn't say gimme fight, but I think this is a good matchup for him for sure. I think he probably gets a knockout, but I could see him winning a decision as well. And like Feely's no slouch on the feet. His range might give Danny Ige some problems early, but I think Ige is probably going to be able to adjust. And if he doesn't knock him out, I do see him dropping him at some point. Um, so yeah, not much for me on this one. I do like Danny Ige, but like I said, not at the odds.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying that like this is kind of a fight for Ige. It's like one of those guys that's borderline top 15 where he really shines. It's like he can really put his like I said, the jab to use, his power. I do have Ige in this one. It's one where again, if you want to throw him in a parlay, I would maybe think of like a two leg. Like I said, I like that under in that first fight, under 2.5. If you want to parlay those two, I don't hate that. But uh, I'm not going to straight bet Ige at almost a 2-1, like you were saying. I don't hate Feely as a dart threat at +144. I don't think there's enough value there though. The over under 2.5. That's almost. I don't hate the under at plus 154. I wouldn't advise taking it. It's one of those fights that for me personally, I'll probably just sit on the sidelines and watch it. I do think Ige will win. Maybe if I find something that's close to like a minus 200, like I said, that minus 160 on the under. That's something where I'd think about parlaying those two, but I'm not going to throw them in any like long shot parlay or anything. Some big parlay. But Ige will be my pick. We'll get into this next fight. This is another, again, I mean, compared to last week specifically, it's another decent fight. It's one of the ones where going back to the first fight where it's like, okay, we got a ranked guy versus a guy without a number next to his name, and this guy's a big favorite. It's like that, although neither of these guys are ranked. One of them is making their UFC debut, but it's a middleweight bout between Robert Bryczek and Ihor Potieria. And Bryczek's a minus 205 favorite. Potieria is a plus 158 underdog. And like I said, Bryczek's making his UFC career, his UFC debut. He's 17-5 in his career, and he's on a 5-fight win streak. And all 5 of those fights have been first round knockouts or TKOs. And then you got Potieria, who's 20-5 in his career, 1-3 in the UFC, which is a little meh. He's coming off a round 2 TKO loss to Ronaldo Bellato. Over under set at around 1.5. The over is a plus 195, and the under is all the way to minus 260. I texted the guys, Hammer and Admiral Oscar, earlier, and I was like, okay, so what is the over under looking like on this one? Because if there was any value on like an under around 1.5, I was 100% going to make that my pick of the week. It looked like, okay, this has to happen. But like I said, it's a minus 260 for under around 1.5. I would almost guarantee that hits, and I'd almost guarantee that Bryczek knocks him out in the first round. That's the read that I have. Ihor Potieria is not very good. Like I said, he's 1-3 in the UFC. He's coming off a loss. I think he's coming off 2 straight losses. I think he has a win sandwich in there. Like I said, he's 1-3 in the UFC. I just
Yeah,
think that this is
his wins against 40-year-old Shogun.
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
not an impressive win either. So it seems like one of those fights where the UFC is pushing this young guy that they just signed, and they're like, all right, go out there, make a name for yourself. For any so-called casual fans, if that's what you consider yourself, which there's a sour connotation behind that name. I disagree with it. If you're just, like to watch fights sometimes, good for you. But if you want to watch a fight, this is one of those ones you probably want to watch because this guy is probably going to knock him out pretty brutally.
Yeah, if Ihor Potieria wasn't so bad, I'd like to bet him because I like to fade. I mean, I'm just being honest.
That's the truth.
He's not good. Yeah, I would like to bet him because I like to fade guys making their UFC debut that aren't really tested. But yeah, Poteria's looked so bad. Like I said, his 1 wins against Shogun where he I forget what he did after. It was some weird ass dance after he knocked out Shogun, and everyone hated him for it. And then he got knocked out his next 2. So I think that was a little bit of karma for him. Yeah, I don't have much on this one, to be honest. I don't know how good this Bryczek guy is. I haven't really watched much.
That's good pronunciation. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that was good.
Well, it's because you said first, but that's why you always do it first.
That's never stopped you before, but
I know. That's true. All right. Calm down, fellas.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think it's hard to deny 5 knockout wins in a row, regardless if they came in the UFC or not. He obviously has a lot of power, and we've seen Ihor's chin isn't very good. So yeah, Bryczek probably knocks him out. Definitely not going to get involved at 2-1 against a guy or with a guy making his UFC debut. But yeah, he probably knocks him out pretty brutally.
Well, so to add the books, let me give you a little bit here. The Bryczek to win by KO TKO is minus 165. For him to win by KO TKO in the first round is plus 110.
Yeah.
So wait, what? Say
yeah, that's right. Round and method. It's win by a KO TKO in round 1 is plus 110.
And what was the first? What was him just to win by knockout? Like
minus 165.
Oh, I thought you said plus 165. I was like, how the fuck does that make any
sense?
Oh
no, maybe I misspoke. I don't know.
No, you probably didn't. I was just very confused there.
Well, one of the things that I mean, you can't do this yet, but they usually open up SGPs for fight nights like day of. So if you wanted to maybe move that, like if you wanted to put the under 1.5, with the money line, like you'd probably get closer to that. Or if you wanted to put the under 1.5 with the method of victory, you could buy yourself a little bit more time for a knockout if you wanted. But yeah, I'd say the value seems pretty slim on this one.
Yeah, don't
Yeah,
bet this fight. Just watch it as a fan.
like I said, I'm pretty confident that it's gonna be a Brixik round 1 knockout. It's just like that's some of these fights you can just see like this is what Dana and Sean Shelby and this is what they want to happen. They want to push a guy that's newer. In this case, making his debut. They want to push him against a guy that has had a couple fights in the UFC. Like people know his name if they watch enough fights. They're like, oh, this guy, I've seen him fight this guy. And like Hammer said, Patera, he has a win over Shogun Hua, and like I know it's not a good win, like you said, as a 40-year-old Shogun Hua, but it's a name. It's a name that fans know. So it just seems like one of those situations where everything's lining up for a first round knockout, and the books seem to think the same thing.
Yeah.
I think we're going to move into this next fight. I think we could get this one in before we take a small little break. We got another middleweight bout. This one's between Brad Tavares and Gregory Rodriguez, the RoboCop. Tavares is a plus 200 dog. Tavares a minus 265 favorite. Tavares is 20-8 in his career, 15-8 in the UFC. So he spent most of his career in the UFC. He's coming off the unanimous decision win over Chris Weidman, where he looked so much better than Chris Weidman. And I think that says more about Chris Weidman's a little bit towards the tail end of his career than any like Brad Tavares at being a dominant performance by him. But then you got Rodriguez, who's 14-5 in his career, 5-2 in the UFC. And he's coming off that round 1 TKO win over Dennis Tululin. Over under set it at 2.5 rounds, minus 115 both ways, over and under. This is one of those fights where,
That's the worst. Sorry, just real quickly.
yeah, I was
I
gonna say,
can't I cannot stand that. The when you juice both sides like that, I can't. There's a few of them that are like that in
You
this.
don't see that very often, I feel like. Or
Yeah,
at
and
least
you
I
shouldn't.
don't.
They already have. That's what the vig already is. It's already minus 110. Anyway, sorry. It's just a personal vendetta. Continue.
No, I
no,
agree.
it's the truth. It needed to be aired out. It's just it's super annoying. It's like either way, I don't know. It's super annoying. I don't know which way I like. I probably like the over 2.5. It probably gets to a decision for Gregory Rodriguez. I mean, again, this is just kind of what I'm seeing. Brad Tavares, like I said, he's 20-8 in his career, 15-8 in the UFC. So most of his fights have been in the UFC. If you watch just random card here or there, you've seen a Brad Tavares fight. There's nothing necessarily that like sticks out to me about him. He's a decent grappler. I think that Gregory Rodriguez is really pretty good everywhere. He's not great necessarily anywhere. Like he's not like a great stand-up fighter. He's not a great submission artist. He's not, a great grappler, but he's good everywhere. I think he's going to be good enough to stuff some takedown attempts from Tavares. I think he's going to keep it on the feet and he'll be able to outpoint him to a victory.
Yeah, I honestly don't hate Brad Tavares in this matchup. And I like Gregory Rodriguez a lot. I've bet him a decent amount in his UFC career. But like what you're saying, I think both guys are just pretty solid everywhere, like you were kind of saying. Rodriguez has some power for sure, but it's not like he's an amazing stand-up fighter. He's really tough. Like I've seen him
Mhm.
rock multiple times. He stays in there, so I kind of like a read on the over 2.5 there. Um, and like you said, Brad Tavares is coming off a win over Chris Weidman, but that's after Chris Weidman had a 2-year layoff and completely broke his leg against Uriah Hall. So yeah, and that's also an old Weidman. I mean, he's probably close to 40, if not over
Yeah,
40
he's
now.
right
So
there, probably 38-ish,
yeah, so
right there at 40.
yeah, I don't hate Tavares in this matchup just because I think there is a little bit of value there, just not enough for me to bet him. Also, I really like Gregory Rodriguez as a fighter. I think he's super entertaining, so I don't really want to fade him in that aspect. But I do think there's a little bit of value on Tavares, but yeah, like you were saying, I think the over 2.5 rounds, even though they're kind of fucking us, making it, they're both minus 115. But
Yeah, they're not giving us any juice anywhere.
I'd lean that way. But yeah, that's all I have on this one. It's gonna be on the feet. They're both primarily strikers, so yeah, I think it's gonna be a very exciting fight for the fans. I don't think you should bet it. If you were, I'd give it 2.5, or I'd
Yeah,
just go straight for the jugular and take to go the distance. Like you're gonna get
yeah.
what plus 105 on that or something like that. I don't know what the odds are, but
And weirdly enough, Gregory Rodriguez is at a -265 is the highest odds we're going to be going over. But regardless, we're going to take a quick little break, get back into it, round off this main card, and go over a couple prelims. All right, we're back at it. We're going to get straight into it. Our next fight on this main card, we got a lightweight bout between the immortal Michael Johnson. During the break, we were talking about him a little bit. I thought that I had to throw that in. So we got Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers. Johnson is kind of surprisingly the -130 favorite. Flowers is a +102 dog. I'll just right away say it. This fight has my favorite pick, and it's going to be Darius Flowers money line. You got Johnson, who's 21-19 in his career, 13-15 in the UFC. Kind of crazy. This is going to be his 29th fight in the UFC. He's coming off of that round 2 TKO loss to Diego Ferreira, which was pretty brutal. Then you got Flowers, who's 12-6-1 in his career, 0-1 in the UFC. He's coming off of a round 2 rear naked choke loss to Jake Matthews. Fight before that, he won in the Contender Series. We got the over/under set at a round and a half, over at a -120, under at a -110. Like I said, Darius Flowers is going to be my favorite pick of the week. And when I throw that term out there, I don't want to say confidently go out there and throw $1,000 on Darius Flowers. Don't do that. I like Darius Flowers. This is my favorite bet that has some value to it this week. That is how I'll describe it. I feel more confident than not on this. Out of everything that was close to even odds or a little bit plus money, this has been my favorite one. This is my favorite one. I just think that Darius Flowers has some pretty significant power. Enough power to put Michael Johnson out. And like I was saying to Admin Oscar over the break, Michael Johnson has fought so many people, so many guys. And he's fought so many big names. He's beaten and knocked out Dustin Poirier. He beat Tony Ferguson. But in his last fight against Diego Ferreira, he got knocked out and it looked pretty brutal. And when these guys reach the age of 37 is old. It's not the oldest guy that we're going to see fighting. But when you have this kind of career resume too, when you fought these kind of guys and you've been in the wars that Michael Johnson has been in, and you're fighting a guy like Darius Flowers who has a lot of power, I don't like that matchup for Michael Johnson. I think if he gets clipped early, I think that could spell the end. It's hard to bet against experience too. Honestly, one of my passion plays is I like to bet these guys that have a lot of experience. But I just think in this one, it's not the greatest matchup for Johnson coming off of a knockout.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the only thing I really like and that favors Michael Johnson here is the experience. He's been there, like you said, he has a lot of signature wins. He had Justin Gaethje on the ropes in his debut. Ended up getting knocked out, but yeah, he's fought a lot of good guys. The thing with Michael Johnson is the speed hasn't completely declined. Like he's still a fast fighter, but it's decreased a little bit. Darius Flowers is pretty fast. You said that Darius Flowers got submitted in his first fight. Michael Johnson isn't a fighter that's going to look to take the fight to the ground, so I think that does favor Flowers. I don't love to bet on guys that are 12-6 or 12-6-1, like you said, but I agree that this probably isn't the best matchup for Michael Johnson. He has a little bit of chin issues, and especially being older, your chin just naturally starts to decline. He got brutally knocked out his last fight. I hate betting on guys that get knocked out in their last one. So, yeah, I'd probably side with Flowers here. I don't love it, but I don't love much on this card. So, yeah, I think and then we were talking about it. He's only plus 180 to get a knockout. So what he's like plus 100 to plus 105, probably depending on what book you're looking at. But I saw plus 180 to get a knockout. So the books think if he wins this fight, it's gonna be by way of KO or TKO. And yeah, tend to agree with that one. And like even if he doesn't knock out Michael Johnson, like he could knock him down multiple times and win rounds that way. So yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not overly confident in this one. I do like it. I
It's
like it
hard to
enough to
be
make it my
over
favorite pick.
it's hard to be overly confident in much of this card.
Yeah, exactly,
to
and
be
and
honest.
that just goes back to what we were saying with, the quality of these cards, these fight nights is gonna be lower because of the high quality of the pay-per-views coming up. So, you gotta pick and choose your battles. We didn't do too great doing that last weekend. We'll get into that more, but, for the time being, we'll get into this next fight, and I'll leave it at that. My favorite pick is gonna be Darius Flowers money line for this week. Get a little bit of value of plus money. So,
Real quick on that, I think what we said was plus 102. As I'm
Mhm.
looking at it on DraftKings right now, he's plus 114. So for the sake of tracking and stuff, I'm going to use plus 114. So
yeah,
if you're
we'll use
listening
the
to
best
this
odds.
right as the podcast comes out, that's the price you can probably get. Just as an FYI before we move on.
Yeah, and these lines, they'll shift either way, probably. Especially by the time that we put it out on X, we make a graphic for our best bets, and these lines can shift obviously in the time being from now recording to us making that post. So as of right now, the best odds you can get for Flowers plus 114. That's most likely what we'll end up using. But yeah, we'll get into this next fight, another middleweight fight. We got Rodolfo Vieira, and he's fighting Armin Petrosian. Vieira is a minus 125 favorite. Petrosian's a minus 102 dog, so pretty close odds. Vieira's 9-2 in his career, 4-2 in the UFC. He's coming off of the round two arm triangle win over Cody Brundage. Then we got Petrosian, who's 8-2 in his career, 3-1 in the UFC, and he's coming off a unanimous decision win over Christian Leroy Duncan, and he's a Contender Series graduate. He had a win in Contender Series in 2021. Over under set at 2.5 rounds. Over is at a plus 130. Under is a minus 166. Another interesting fight. I think that you have some insight on this one, Hammer.
Yeah, Petrosian's gonna be my favorite bet. I was hoping to get him at plus money on DraftKings, but FanDuel he's minus 102 and DraftKings he's minus 102. Like I've said before, a lot of times DraftKings will give you better odds, not as sharp as a book in my opinion. Yeah, it's I'm not like super confident, like you said. I just think there's some value here. I think Petrosian only has one loss in the UFC. I'm pretty sure, and
Yep.
I did not bet him in that fight because he was fighting Barala. I forget what his first
Ciao.
name is. Chow. Yeah, I was gonna say not that. So I'm glad you chimed in there.
I got you, my friend. I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah, Chow Barala. And then that matchup, I just didn't like it because Barala is really good at controlling you once it gets to the ground. It's funny I say that because Vieira is a world class BJJ guy. He's won multiple BJJ world titles. One of the most decorated BJJ guys we've ever seen in the UFC, if I'm going to be completely honest. But he has really bad gas tank issues, and his one of the fights he lost in the UFC was to Alexander Fluffy Hernandez, and I think he was able to get some takedowns early in that one, but he wasn't able to control him how he needed to. He gassed out really hard, and Hernandez was able to. He might have actually subbed him because he was so tired, but I think it was a TKO. I can't remember, but I like this because I think Petrosian's a lot better on the feet. And with that being said, um, Vieira obviously a great BJJ guy, but he's in MMA. It's a little different. He's not as good as just controlling you as you would think someone that high level is, in my opinion. And I think Petrosian, if he gets taken down early, could be a short night for him. If I'm going to be completely honest, he could be in trouble. But I like his chances to get back to the feet. He's really long. I think it's going to be tough for Vieira to take him down. Um, over and over again. And I think Petrosian's just really solid on the feet. I've bet him almost every fight he's been in the UFC. He has one loss. I think I've won every bet that I've placed on him. I just really like him, and I think he has a good shot in this one. I was hoping to get him at plus money, but in my opinion, I think he should be like minus 140, minus 150. So getting a little bit of value. Would love for it to be plus money, but damn near as close as it can be. And I think he wins this one, but the way I look at it is you'll probably know pretty early if he's gonna lose. Like this fight could end in 2 minutes. He could get some subbed, but if it doesn't, I think he wins the fight, and I think he beats him up pretty bad if he doesn't get subbed early.
Yeah, and that's a name that I definitely like a lot too. Ultimately, I obviously picked Darius Flowers, but I like Petrosian a lot too. Doing my research this week, I think that if Petrosian's able to stuff a couple of the takedowns from Vieira, he'll be able to win pretty handedly on the feet. But that's the name of the game right there. He's gotta not let this fight get to the ground. As Hammer said, Vieira, he's a very, renowned, BJJ guy. So, if this fight does get to the ground, maybe Petrosian can scramble a little bit and get out of it, but he's definitely gonna be in danger once it gets down there.
Yeah.
I do think that Petrosian will be able to stuff a couple of his takedowns, though, and, as Hammer was saying, again, he has the, clear advantage on the feet. So, I do like him. I think that there is some decent value there at -102. Like you were saying, again, I wish that maybe he would get the plus money, and he still can.
He
Um,
probably will. He honestly
yeah,
probably will. Obviously, for the graphic and everything, we're gonna give you the odds that we're putting out. So it's gonna be -102. But couple of my last picks that won, Sean Woodson, Josh Emmett, it moved. The line moved to like better odds for us. Like not great if you're looking at him like oh shit, like he's like a plus. Started at +150, now he's like +170, +180 or whatever. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it probably will move like that. Again, I think there are going to be some betters on Vieira here, and it'll probably move in his favor even more. But I'm not. That's not going to scare me off. I mean, like I said, the last couple of times that happened to me, I was a little nervous, but my guys came out and did their job. So hopefully that happens again here. But we'll see. Maybe I'll get some CLV. Maybe it'll be a straight pick 'em when this fight occurs. But I don't think so. We'll see.
I like you. I think that Petrosian has a good chance to get into it, like I don't know, +100, and
Yeah.
even at that, we'll take that. We like that for the odds. So we'll get straight into these prelims. We're only going to cover 3 of the prelims, and we're going to cover them pretty not extensively. They're decent. There's some decent names on these, but again, um, not great. I don't wanna beat a dead horse. We know the scenarios here. We know why the cards are not so great. So, getting into this next fight, it's a welterweight belt. It's between Trevin Giles, and he's fighting Carlos Prates, another guy making his debut. Trevin Giles is a +200 dog, Prates -265 favorite. Again, it's one of those scenarios where a guy making his debut is the big favorite, so we usually know how that ends. Giles is 16-5 in his career, 7-5 in the UFC. He's coming off a round one guillotine loss at Gabriel Bonfim. Then you got Pradas, who's 17-6. Like I said, he's making his UFC debut, and he was with one in LFA before coming over to the UFC, and he's coming off the Contender Series win, a round two knockout over Mitch Ramirez in the Contender Series. Over under set at round and a half, over -140, under is at a +110. Uh, it's pretty, telling when you see Trevin Giles +200 against a guy who's making his UFC debut. Again, um, it really makes you think that, the books, they know where this one is heading. I think that when you see something like this, we've said it time and time again, it's telling Prada should win this fight against Trevin Giles, and Trevin Giles isn't necessarily a slouch. He's not like some terrible fighter. Like I said, he's coming off a round one guillotine loss to Gabriel Bonfim, but Gabriel Bonfim's pretty decent. I am gonna pick Pradas. I wouldn't recommend that you guys throw him in a parlay just because there's not a bunch of he he doesn't have a ton of top level experience is what I kinda wanna say. One and LFA are both decent organizations. You'll have good fights in there, but coming over to the UFC and being matched up against a guy like Trevin Giles and you're almost a 3-1 favorite, that's pretty telling in and of itself.
Yeah, Trevin Giles isn't bad. I think he's like 7-5 in his UFC career. I think he's just pretty much the definition of average. Not great, not horrible. I think he's a cop too. So just thought I'd throw that out there. I think he's a police officer.
I can
Um,
help.
but yeah, I don't love anything in this. Like, yeah, I'd like to sit here and say that I think there's value on Trevin Giles, but I don't think he's looked very good in his last few fights. Don't know much about Prodes. Haven't been able to watch a lot of film on him. Like you said, the LFA is a pretty good organization, kind of like a farm system to the UFC. a lot of guys that become champion there end up in the UFC. So yeah, this guy's probably pretty decent. Probably wouldn't recommend taking him at minus what 230, whatever you said it was.
265.
265 making his debut. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't like to bet on guys making their UFC debut. Sometimes the lights are just too bright. They're just not comfortable. They don't fight how they usually would. Nerves get to them.
Well, then do I
Yeah,
have a parlay for
how
you?
much?
Because if you take both of the guys that we've talked about making their debut, it is plus 111 if you want that storyline.
Yeah,
The new
don't
boys.
Bryczek and
don't take that. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, if there was a time to do that, I'd
Price.
probably say it's this one.
What's a parlay for the two guys fighting against the guys making their debut?
Oh,
You can
that's
get
a
some
good.
juice
Let,
there.
let me let me plug
Really,
that one
really
in.
don't take that one because then you have to put
Are you
fucking
sure?
Ihor's
Yeah,
Ihor's
and you're
ass in there.
right.
I mean, you're just like, come on, bro. That ain't
Yeah,
it.
don't bet Ihor.
Well,
But
that
for
one
the
is
sake of
7-1. So
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Don't do it, but
7-1 for a reason.
yeah, don't do it, but those are decent odds.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny you bring that up though, Admiral Oscar, because like if I were to do like this would be a card to do that on just because I think Ihor is really bad and I don't think Trevin Giles is the best either. So could hit, but you're also
it's a
get
dangerous game to play,
you
right?
need
Like I think
two
what you
It
said
is.
is right. You know,
you
it's
need
like
two fights to hit for plus 111. I don't think that's
yeah, it's just that
that
old
much
thing.
value
Like the
there.
more legs you add, you know, it's if someone gets hurt, if there's something dumb that
Yeah,
happens, yeah, you're just opening
yeah.
yourself up to kind of nasty exposure.
Yes, shit like that you have to account for with MMA. So you see a shit ton of injuries. A lot of fluke shit happens. So yeah, I don't have much on it. Probably don't bet this one, but I could see it being a pretty exciting fight.
Yeah, I'm also on the don't bet it, but we'll get into this next one. Light heavyweight bout. We got Devin Clark and he's fighting Marcin Prachnio. Devin Clark's the minus 220 favorite. Prachnio is plus 168 dog. Clark 14-8 in his career, 8-8 split in the UFC 500. He's coming off a round 2 stand and guillotine loss at Kennedy and Zechku. And that one's pretty interesting because he almost had Kennedy out of that fight early. He hit him hard and often in that first round. Again, like I said, he lost via submission in the second round. Then we got Prachnio, 16-7 in his career, 3-5 in the UFC. And he's coming off of a round 3 arm triangle loss to Vitor Petrino. Over under set at 2.5 rounds. Over's favored at a minus 175. Under is a plus 135. Um, I don't think Marcin Prachnio is very good, just gonna be completely honest. I think that, Devin Clark will be able to do this however he'd like. I think he has the advantage on the feet. I think that if he wants to take it to the ground, he'll be able to, and he can keep it down there too. Um, I think that Devin Clark will win via decision. Like, I like this over 2.5. I don't think that there's enough value to take it even in a parlay to minus 175, especially in the light heavyweight division. I mean, it's not like every time that the heavier guys are gonna, not make it to a decision, but I think that it's always less likely when the heavier guys betting them to make it all 3 rounds, just, simply due to the weight that they're carrying around. So I do like Devin Clark in this one. I'm never gonna advise you guys to take minus 220 straight. Throw him into a parlay, sure. I think that he'll win this fight.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think Devin Clark gets this done pretty much however he wants to. A lot of Devin Clark's losses have come, or at least in the UFC, have came by submission. And Prashina is not a guy that's gonna uh, submit you. He's gonna stand and bang, try to knock you out that way. So I think Devin Clark can win this fight on the feet. I think he can take him down and bank rounds that way. And like Devin Clark doesn't have bad wrestling. Like I'm pretty sure like one of his submission losses, he was taking down Anthony Smith pretty easily, but Anthony Smith's pretty dangerous off his back. I think he grabbed a guillotine and submitted him that way. So yeah, like you said, I wouldn't don't love it at minus 200, but this is a parlay piece. I think if you're looking for one, I think you throw him in a parlay and he gets it done pretty easily. What is he
Yeah,
to
and
win by decision? Just curious.
that's
No
kinda what
prop,
I
no
was.
props yet out for that.
Oh,
Okay. That is one that I like, though. I keep your eyes
yeah.
open for that one.
I think he definitely can win a submission. Devin Clark's tough too, man. He's been battered a couple fights and he stays in there. So yeah, I like him in this one, but like I said with a lot of these fights earlier, don't love the value on much.
It's worth looking out for that though. Those do come out usually even for these prelims and stuff. It's just they don't release them until, especially for fight nights, like day of, like very close to the fight times. So yeah, if you want to do any of those method of victory or anything like that, they'll be available. You just gotta wait on them.
Yeah, so like we said, I do think that Devin Clark gets this done. If you want to wait on that method of victory, then go ahead. If you want to throw him in a parlay, I would say to do that. It's just I don't think that Marcin Prachnio is necessarily on the level of Devin Clark. So I'm fairly confident that he wins this fight even in -220. I'm 100% okay with throwing that into a parlay. Um, then this last prelim we're gonna get into, and honestly, like I said, the three prelim fights that we're covering, they're pretty decent. They have decent names in them. This last one is a welterweight bout, and it's between Max Griffin and Jeremiah Wells. Max Griffin is a +142 dog. Wells a -184 favorite. Griffin, who's 19-10 in his career, 7-8 in the UFC. He's coming off of that unanimous decision loss to Michael Morales. You know, like I said in previous episodes, there's such things as a good loss. Michael Morales is the real deal. He's 24. He's such an up and coming star. So he was not supposed to win that fight. He didn't win that fight. It was kind of one sided, but Max Griffin, he's been there. He's fought some real good guys. And then you got Wells, who's 12-3-1, bit of a weird record, 3-1 in the UFC. He's coming off a round three anaconda choke loss to Carlson Harris. And before that, he was on a 6-fight win streak. This is another one where we see the over under. It's set at 2.5 rounds. Both ways, it's at a -115. Um, I don't know. I think that there's kind of value on Max Griffin here at +142. What are your thoughts on this one, Hammer?
I completely agree. I don't think we really talked about this one behind the scenes, but I'm with you. Jeremiah Wells isn't horrible, but he's not really great anywhere. He lost his last one, right, to Carlton, like you said. I think he was subbed. The fight before that, he was almost finished by Semmelsberger a couple times in the stand-up department, but Semmelsberger's wrestling is just so bad that he was able to, keep taking him down round after round, control him that way. And he has some submissions. Once he gets you there, he can take her back. Rene can choke you. He has a little bit of submission ability, but I think Max Griffin's just fought a lot higher level opponent. I think he's better on the feet, and I don't think Wells has like a huge wrestling advantage by any means. He might have like a little bit of one, but I think Max Griffin's pretty well rounded, and I think there's value on him for sure. I think Max Griffin's going to want to keep this fight on the feet, and I think he'll be able to. And I think Wells is pretty jacked, and and sometimes guys that are that jacked, they're holding a lot of muscle and whatever, so that they tend to gas easier. I think Max Griffin could take him into deep waters and get a win that way. I think he's better on the feet, and like I said, Wells doesn't have a huge wrestling advantage in my opinion. So I think I think Max Griffin's a good bet here. I'm. It's funny you said you were close to making Max Griffin your favorite pick.
Yeah.
Same here. I just think there's value there, but yeah, well, with Petrosian instead, but not much on this one to be honest. I think Max Griffin's a good bet, but I probably will bet him. I just didn't want to make him my best bet, if you will.
Yeah, I just think Darius Flowers is like a little bit safer, and I'm not calling Darius Flowers money line a safe bet by any means.
No,
I think it's a little bit safer than going with Max Griffin. But like we both said, I think the Max Griffin is value there. If I have to pick a winner, I think honestly I am going to side towards Max Griffin. So um, I think it's worth it to take a shot on him. I definitely would not advise anybody to take Jeremiah Wells at a -184. Like not in a
no.
parlay, not straight. I would not touch that. And the over under 2.5 rounds, I don't like that very much either. I kind of think that I kind of
It's
thought
the
it was going to be
minus
at
one
1.5.
fifteen. It's the
Yeah,
minus 115 bullshit again, huh?
we got it twice on one card. The
So
rarity.
ridiculous, so stupid. I hate it.
So nice they did it twice to us.
Well, you know what? And there's another one on here that's it's -110 on one side and -120 on the other. So not double juice, I guess, but extra juice for absolutely no reason. That sucks. I hate that. That's my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, so we're not getting much value this week on the over-unders. I'm just pretty much avoid them altogether. Usually, like, I texted these guys and I said that, I kind of wanted to go with an over and under this week, but nothing was catching my eye. Like I said earlier on the Bryczek fight, I was looking forward to seeing what that was set at because I would definitely go with the under there, but it's so favored towards the under. There's no value towards it. So anyways, I think that's going to do it for our look ahead for this weekend's fights. We're going to do a quick little recap of last week's UFC Vegas 85. We'll go straight into the main event. There was definitely some drama there. Both with the scorecards and the actual fight. I'm going to pull up this scorecard real quick because it was wild. Nassourdine Imamov, he won a majority decision. The scorecards were nuts. And during the fight, it was an illegal knee that he hit Roman Dolidze with. They paused the fight, and during that, you saw Nassourdine Imamov. He was like rushing Dolidze's corner, and Chris Curtis was in his corner. And for those of you that don't know, Chris Curtis and Imamov fought, and it was stopped. I think that was an eye poke, maybe. Whatever it was, it was a no contest between those two, and there's definitely some bad blood between the two of them still. And you saw Herb Dean; he was saying like, "Hey, man, I can disqualify you if you don't stop going after Chris Curtis. You got to you just illegally need him. You're yelling at the corner. We got to calm him down." That eventually led to a point being taken off of him. But getting into these scorecards, we had a 49-44 for Nassourdine Imamov, meaning that even with the point taken, he got it a 10-8 in round one. And then you had a 48-46, which is more like it for Imamov. And then Big Ron McCarthy, 47-47. I don't know how the hell you get a 47-47 in that fight.
That was insane.
It was beyond clear that Imamov won the fight. There's no justification, even with the point being taken in round four, that you get to a split. I don't know. It was a weird fight all around. The scorecards
It
were weird. Like
sucked.
I said, there was drama.
Let's just be honest. It was a bad fight. It was
a bad fight.
Not very entertaining. Aside from, I will say it was kind of saved though by the whole Chris Curtis thing. That was pretty funny. Even like whenever they were doing the announcement at the end, like they were still going back and forth. That was pretty funny too.
Yeah, and I think it was DC. I said to the fellas I was watching it with, I felt like Daniel Cormier was high or drunk. He was acting weird all night. He was saying some weird stuff. He was like had these weird interjections.
Dude, did you see the card? How else is he gonna get through that whole card?
Which exactly, that was gonna be my point. Is I couldn't blame him if he smoked a little crack. I'm kidding. I don't condone crack, but he just sounded weird all night. And he was saying like after the fight, he was like, "You cannot let Chris Curtis into the octagon. You cannot let this happen." They didn't. As smart, they probably would have fist fought. Imamov doesn't seem to be taking, and he seems to take stuff pretty serious. But regardless, that was a weird fight. We did all see Imamov winning. I don't know how there was a split in that. It was weird. Co-main, that was a little bit painful for me. We had Renato Moicano. He defeated Drew Dober via unanimous decision. It was pretty sad too because Drew Dober, he was starting to take over halfway through that second round, and he was looking good in the third too. And then Moicano was able to get him to the ground, and he just kind of out controlled him on the ground for that third. But I will say, Moicano's hilarious. That post-fight interview was so funny. He's talking about how
he covered like 7 different topics and
dude, he just kept going. He was like, "Yeah, my 63-year-old dad just had a kid, but wait, I'm gonna have a kid. But wait, follow me.
I want to be a cop." And he's like, "I want to be a cop and kill terrorists or something." I don't know what he said.
He was like, "I want to kill people. I love America, but wait, I hate MMA Guru on YouTube." And it was hilarious.
Wait, did you guys see MMA Guru's reaction, his live reaction to it? That was so funny. That was just absolutely hilarious, dude. That guy's an electric factory after fights.
So all of that, it was so funny. I will advise you guys to go watch Moicano on YouTube. He is absolutely hilarious. I just think that it's funny when these guys that don't speak some broken English, shit talk on YouTube. It's so funny. So it was a bad beat for me. Obviously, I had Drew Dober moneyline as my favorite pick, but it was worth it just to get that post-fight interview. I will say too, there was a video where they're getting ready to read the decision, and Moicano looks over to Dober. He's like, "Hey, how much do you weigh?" He goes, "Yeah, 185. Fuck you, man."
Yeah.
Because Moicano was fighting at like 145, so he's going up. He's
Yeah.
he's already a smaller guy at 55, and Drew Dober's huge for 55. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then your pick, Hammer, Mahmoud Muradov and Aliskab Kizriev ended in 11 seconds with a no contest. I think that was the quickest no contest ever.
Yeah, I was like confused. I thought I like lost or something because I was like, holy shit, that was quick. Like what happened? And then I realized because I actually missed it. I was like pulling it up, like right before it happened. And yeah, then the fight was over. So yeah, I guess it was a pretty brutal eye poke. I saw some people call it saying it should have been a DQ, but and people were like, "What are you talking about? Why should it be a DQ?" Like it wasn't obviously wasn't intentional. I guess some people were saying that guy has had this was his first or second UFC fight or whatever, but I guess in the past he's had some eye poke stuff, so people think like I don't know, maybe it's on purpose. I don't think that's the case. I just think with the MMA gloves, the open fingers, man, it's your job to keep your hands closed. It really is, but shit happens, and I'm just glad it wasn't a loss because, like, obviously it wasn't gonna lose with an eye poke or whatever, but like when I saw it ended so quickly, I like kind of thought I lost. So
Yeah. So it
I
was.
was like, yeah, I was like, I guess that's good, but yeah, it just like sucks because I did like him in the matchup, and yeah, it is what it is. I'm glad he didn't. If he like couldn't see out that eye or whatever, I'm glad he didn't choose to fight and
Yeah.
then lose because he was gonna, pull a Bisman and fight one eye. So
Damn, Bisping's just
I
steady catching strays, man.
no, dude, I love Bisman, man. He's the man. But
He just
I
has
just
one eye. It's not his
I
fault.
mean, he makes fun of his one eye.
Eh,
So
Yeah. So we're allowed
it,
to.
it is what it is.
But yeah, like you said, it's better than a loss. It wasn't the greatest week for us with a no contest and a loss. But we'll get that back this weekend,
Yeah,
guaranteed. You know,
guaranteed.
but just rounding off that last week's card, it was weird circumstances for a weird card that wasn't good. I think that the whole MMA community knew that it wasn't going to be a good card, and we said last week, we like to try to keep it positive. Sometimes these cards are the best cards. Nah, it was pretty terrible. It was terrible on paper. It was terrible in results. But big meatball Molly McCann though, she's back in the win column. She got which was crazy enough. She got a armbar over Diana Balbita with 4 minutes and 59 seconds in the first round. So last second win for her there, get her back in the win column. Diana Balbita is probably going to have to go find a new career. Then you got Themba Greenbow. He had a big knockout, 25-second knockout against Pete Rodriguez. Outside of that, I mean, that's the card. It
Yeah,
wasn't
real
great.
quick. I just think Molly McCann is probably my least favorite fighter on the
I'm
roster
glad you said it.
because it's just I don't like her, man. And
She tries to be so hyped and, she thinks she's so cool. And
she had like a
fighter.
resurgence because they keep feeding her like the worst fighters on the roster, and she's friends with Patty Pimblett. They train together, so they
She's a
try to like
Barstool
hype,
lady.
yeah, Barstool or whatever. So they try to hype her that way.
Was it Macy Barber that she fought that actually treated her like a rag doll?
I mean, a lot of girls she fought treated like forget what fight it was. Like one of the cup. I don't know how many fights she has in the UFC, but like one of the fights she was like taking off her gloves, and I was like, oh, thank God! Like, and then she
Yeah,
gets
I
on the mic
remember.
and she's like, I'm not retiring. I did that for my dad, which was like, I don't know. I think her dad was like, maybe in the hospital or passed away. So it was what it was. But I was like, oh, nice, she's retiring. And then I was like, oh, never mind. And then I kind of felt bad because then she mentioned her dad or whatever. But yeah, I don't like her. So hopefully she fights someone better so she can lose. But
Well, it was after she got those 2 knockouts, that big one against Luana
yeah.
Carolina and Hannah Goldie. She fought Erin Blanchfield, and Blanchfield actually was just throwing her around the octagon, and Molly McCann looked like super depressed. Like she just
Yeah.
got, and I love to see that. But regardless, that's gonna do it for this week. We'll be back next week to recap not only our picks but the card in general. Depending on how good it is, it'll determine how many fights we really talk about. But then next week we have UFC 298. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilya Topuria, and we're running real low on time. I just want to throw out there real quick that Ilya Topuria already announced that when he does win, he won't give Max Holloway or I forget who else he said. He will not be giving them a title shot. So that is always good news going in. Hammer Alexander Volkanovski.
That's a good reason to root against him. So that's probably it for the. That's it for the pod. We're running low on time, but
closing statement. Just we'll talk about that more next week. So thank you again for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.